Hey friends, happy August. Can you believe it is August? This summer has gone by so quickly, which I normally don't like the time to go by quickly, but I really don't like the summer. So I am really thankful that we are heading into fall here pretty soon. I have a couple of things that I want to get done this month, and then once those things are done, I'm declaring fall. I'm decorating my house for fall. I am starting to do all the fallish things, even though it probably won't drop down below like 80 in the daytime here in Arkansas until mid-October if we're lucky. I'm gonna pretend. But it is the beginning of August, and that means it's time for me to talk about the things that I've read in the last week that I haven't shared with you guys yet, and just kind of a wrap up for the month. July was a really fun month for me on this channel. I did a couple of fun things that I haven't done before. I did a subscriber giveaway, which I will actually be announcing those here very shortly. When I turn off this video, I'm going to go do all of the drawings and figure out the winners and contact them. And when we get that all squared away, then I'll let you guys know who won. The winners will be contacted by email first though, so if you did enter any of those giveaways last month, make sure that you keep an eye on your email, look in your spam box. I will make a little post here, just like a note, here on my channel to let you guys know when all of the winners have been emailed. So you guys can go check your emails, and then when I hear back from everybody, I'll announce those winners. But thank you to everybody who participated in that. I had a lot of fun just making those videos with all the keywords in there. I've got a little stack of gifts I'm looking at right now. I cannot wait to package up and send out to some of my most special subscribers. I am so appreciative of all of you. Thank you guys for your interest and your friendship and all the stuff. So looking forward to this whole new season of this channel and bookish things and fall coming. So I did that in July. I also did quite a few different Jane Austen related videos, and here in the next couple of days I'm going to put up the announcement video for the Jane Austen tour that I'm putting on next spring. You guys have heard me talk about this ad nauseum, but if you were on the email list for that, those emails have been sent out. So check your email if you want first dibs on a spot. There are very limited spots. And then, yeah, I'm gonna put the video out. You guys can get all the details and then ask me questions, whatever. So I did that, lots of Jane Austen related content. I also participated in Jane Austen July, and I had some goals. So I wanted to look over my book journal with you guys and see if I did complete the different goals that I had written out for Jane Austen July. This was my spread for that, and here were my goals. For Jane Austen July, the first goal was to read one of Jane Austen's 6 main novels. I wanted to read Northanger Abbey and possibly also Mansfield Park, and I did read Northanger Abbey, so check that one. Number 2, I wanted to read something by Jane Austen that is not one of her main 6, and for that, I've got Leslie Castle, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, but that one checks the box for that. Number 3, read a nonfiction about Jane Austen or her time. For that one, I read Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. I have a whole video on that up here, talking all about that book and how it inspired me. It right now sits as the best thing I read this year for sure. Number 4, read a retelling or historical fiction. For that one, I read The Rushworth Family Plot by Claudia Gray and talked about that in one of my weekly wrap-up videos. Number 5, read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. And for that one, I read A Simple Story by Elizabeth Inchbald. That one also is in this pile that I'm going to talk to you guys about here in a little bit. So, read that one. Number 6, watch a direct screen adaptation. So I watched the 1987 Northanger Abbey with Peter Firth and Catherine Schlesinger. It's totally cheesy, but still like one of my favorite adaptations. And then the last goal for Jane Austen July was to watch a modern retelling. Now, I did watch a portion of something on YouTube, and I can't remember the channel, but it was a girl kind of doing like a modern day monologue take on Emma. I watched a few episodes of it and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. So, but I did watch some, so I'm counting it. So for me, I completed all of the Jane Austen July prompts and I'm feeling pretty good about that. Also on my list for July, I had to read my classic children's book for the month, and that was A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, which I did read and talked about in my last reading wrap-up video. And then I had my summer school. Now, I, at the beginning of the summer, had a plan for myself to do this little summer school. There's a video on that here somewhere. And I have, with everything that has sprung up unexpectedly in the last couple of months, I've actually done pretty well with that. I have read 2 or 3, and I have DNF'd a couple and changed my mind on a couple, and I've started one. So I'm doing pretty well, like I said, for as crazy as this summer has turned out to be unexpectedly. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and give myself another month. So between August and September, I would like to go ahead and finish those summer school goals that I had. I think everything in here that I've done and that hasn't been DNF'd, I have already talked to you guys about. So I don't really have anything to share as far as that goes, but I probably will here in a couple of weeks. So that is my summer school stuff. And then lastly, I don't know, a month ago, maybe a couple months ago, like I said, it's all running together, I put out my 50 by 50 challenge video where I have 50 books that I want to read by the time I turn 50. So that all goes in this journal. So let's have a look at that and see if I've read anything from my 50 by 50 since compiling it. And I have not. However, I am about 6.5 chapters into the Fellowship of the Ring on audiobook, so that's something. I've already made most of my August goals. I probably won't add anything here, but maybe that's something I need to look at in September, is to maybe add some things from my 50 by 50 list to my September goals. It's been a great month of reading. I do want to share with you guys what I have read over these last like 7 to 10 days. And then if you want to see everything else that I read this month, you can go back and check out all of my weekly reading updates for the month of July. And sprinkled in that stuff are some of the videos that I took while I was in England in June. So if you haven't yet watched those, make sure and go back and watch those. Earlier in this video, I said that I would talk about Leslie Castle, but I just remembered I already talked to you guys about Leslie Castle in my last wrap-up video, so it was still in my basket for some reason. It needs to go back on the shelf. Next up, okay. I read 2 of the Emma M. Lyon books, volumes, 4 and 5? Yeah, 4 and 5. And I don't know, I mean, what can you say? They are 5-star reads. I'm so relating. The really great thing about these stories is that they're really deep and serious in some ways. Like, Emma is navigating some real grief moments, and she is in the later stages of her grief as far as the current things that she's grieving over. In one case, it's something that happened years ago. In another case, it's something that has happened 3 years ago on this book's timeline. So she's in later stages. You know, she's, back into life, and things are not so right there in her face. She doesn't think about it every moment of every day anymore. And so she's just kind of learning to live again. So in that respect, the books are pretty serious and pretty deep, but the funny thing that just lightens the whole thing up and makes them so great is that she ends up dealing with some really petty and silly things, but making them really important. And I want to share with you guys some of the things, but I really don't want to offer any spoilers because they're just so great. Just the crazy, weird imagination of this author. She is fantastic. I have been raving and raving about Emma M. Lyon to my kids for the last couple of weeks. They're so probably tired of hearing about how much I adore these books, but that's just because I want them to read them all. I would really recommend these. I mean, anyone, they're great, but I would really recommend these to someone who is in the later stages of a grief journey, because she's just trying to navigate the everyday with grace and a little bit of humor and, you know, get her joy back. And like, aren't we all, right? And I feel like I'm just where she is. Although all of her, you know, experiences and circumstances and stuff are very different from my own, the feeling of I'm okay until there's just that moment that completely wrecks me, then I'm okay for a really long time. That's where I'm at. And so anyway, this author, I don't know, did she write these to work through something? Has she already worked through something? Is she just really great at like understanding people? I don't know, but these are fantastic. So highly recommend. So I guess I'm on volume 6 next, and there's 8 currently published, and number 9 I guess is coming out pretty soon. I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the timeline, but can't wait. They're the best. All right, and then I had at least one DNF. This is the summer book by Tove Jansson, and she is the illustrator for like the Moomins, if you guys have seen the Moomins. This is a collection of stories for adults, and it's just about like a grandma and her granddaughter and just kind of their experiences together. It's translated from Swedish. It's not that I didn't like the stories, it's that I was kind of bored with them and I felt like they were super basic. And I read quite a few, but you know, sometimes when you just read like those very gentle short stories, it can be just a few pages even, but whatever it is about how things are described, you know, a setting or a mood and just the language that is used, it can be just a really short story, but it can be very touching. That I did not find in these stories. That was lacking. It just seemed very basic. Like, here's a story about what happened today, without anything that compelled me to want to read it. Like, once I got done, I was like, I don't find anything compelling here, right? And that's why I kept reading forward, probably 40 some odd pages, 40-ish, just to see if maybe it picked up a little, and I think that's the right term. I just wasn't compelled to continue. So I DNF'd that one. All right, and then finally I read A Simple Story by Elizabeth Inchbald. This is one of the books that is mentioned in the book called Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. She was an author who was published just a little before Jane Austen was published, and so she would have been a very popular author during Jane Austen's time. Like, Jane would have been very aware of Elizabeth Inchbald. She was a popular author and a popular playwright and a performer in plays, and so she was just like a well-known figure. And I don't really know what to make of this story. The back of it, Oxford World Classics, says, daring in theme, elegant in style, A Simple Story, published 1791, is one of the most remarkable novels of the 18th century. Now, I can't say that 18th century literature is my favorite genre by far, but I have read several things that are quite a bit more compelling, if we want to use that word again, than Elizabeth Inchbald's A Simple Story. One of them being her play Lover's Vows. It's extremely better than this. Now, I have a lot to say about this book. First of all, it's very clear that a playwright wrote this. And it's very clear that they have had completely, I think it was Anne that was talking about the different editing standards in the day compared to ours. Yeah. This book really could have been a play that's about 40 pages long. There's only just a few things that happen in the whole 300 and some odd pages of this book. And everything else is just really drug out. But there's a lot of super dramatic, you know, crying and running off stage sort of scenes. just the way that, you know, I don't know, you have to read it, just the way that she's like giving stage directions almost, or sort of just like setting up the scene, you know. But that's all a stylistic thing, you know, whatever. The content of the book, yeah, just no. For one thing, the main character, who we never actually do find out her first name, as far as I could tell, Miss Milner. She is her father has died, and she is the ward now of a priest, Catholic priest, who has sworn, you know, that he will never marry or whatever. Celibacy, I guess. And so he takes care of her for a while, and she's loving and obedient to him, but she is a total viper snake to other people in their society that she does not like. And I don't know if this was supposed to be like a strong-willed feminist sort of character or what, but she kind of takes turns being like really mouthy and super rude, and then bursting into tears and, you know, dramatics when she doesn't get her way, or, you know, she thinks she might have offended someone she actually respects. It's really hard to see her as a strong, you know, character. However, I'm also looking at it through a 21st century lens, so I guess all I'll say is we've come a long way, ladies. A good majority of what goes on in this story doesn't seem super realistic. It doesn't seem like actual relationships that people actually have. At one point, I did think it was kind of odd that there's an engagement that is just broken off, like, no big deal. Nobody really, you know, gives a lot of information to, you know, the person who's being broken up with, I guess. And it's just like, all right, well, that was done, wrapped up nicely. If it's that easy and that much okay for engagements to be broken, then someone needs to inform Edward Ferrars, and maybe we can have a little redo there. Maybe I'll like him a little better if we do. When Elizabeth Inchbald first submitted this for publication, she submitted the first 2 volumes. So there's 3 volumes altogether in the book as it, you know, finally stands. But she originally intended for it to just be 2 volumes. It ends, the second volume ends well and happy and fine and in a place that's just great. If it would have just ended there, I think I probably would have given it more stars and given it more grace. She's an unvirtuous sort of heroine, and I think that the publishing company didn't want to take a chance. The idea of the novel was still novel, and many people were seeing it as kind of an immoral thing to begin with, to even have a novel in the first place. So the publishing companies were sort of taking a risk by publishing novels. So then to have it all end, and end well for this unvirtuous heroine. She's never actually, punished for her bad deeds. Her bad deeds are just, mouthing off to men and having a strong will. That was just not okay for the publishers. And so Inchbald wrote a 3rd volume where everything just totally goes off the rails and you are just like, what is even happening here? And then it becomes a story about Miss Milner's daughter, who is much more virtuous and obedient to the men in her life than her mother was, to the point where you just really want to strangle her. Now, I'm not a feminist, but I am pro-women, and I'm all about, biblical marriage roles and all that kind of stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. But the men, one particular man in this volume 3 is so abusively, just so neglectful and abusive language-wise and neglectful with his actions. And this girl is just like, it's her whole world to just, be acknowledged, or even, that she even exists. For this guy to even acknowledge that she even exists, like, that is her only dream in her whole life. she wants the tiniest scrap of acknowledgement, and this person is extremely cruel to her. So for those of you who have read Dante, or you're aware of, there's like a statue of Ugolino and his sons, it's kind of been used as an example, a symbolism of this kind of thing, right? Like, you can eat us, Father. Eat us to satiate your hunger, just please love us. Worshipping the one who put you in this crazy, horrible, neglectful situation. So none of these people are like mature enough for marriage or ministry, which is pretty much the roles that these people play, marriage or ministry. And I'm just like, why? What is the reason that Inchbald wrote this novel? Why is this novel seen as one of their most remarkable novels of the 18th century? I don't think it is daring in theme or elegant in style. I think that it's a spoiled woman who pushes too far and gets her just desserts. So I did find the whole thing to be just extremely boring with really unlikable characters. However, I will give her one little... This is why she got 1 star from me. I will acknowledge the fact that Mrs. Inchbald is fantastic at giving insults. Okay, so in one case, there is a man who shows up and he is not wanted. They do not want him to be there. They don't like him. They just want him to leave. And so the woman says, "My lord, I have a book here in my pocket, which I am eager to read. It is an author who speaks sense and reason. Will you pardon the impatience I feel for such company and permit me to call your carriage?" I thought that was great. Okay. So yeah, not my favorite. And I'm gonna have to probably look into this a little bit more. In fact, that actually is on my plan today. I'm gonna put that aside because I want to look into that a little bit more and try to figure out what is it that was supposed to be so daring and compelling, and what was the reason for Inchbald writing this book. I did go back and read the chapter that Rebecca Romney wrote about Elizabeth Inchbald, and there's just a lot of biographical stuff in there. I don't know, I just wasn't seeing it. So anyway, there you go. Simple story. I read it so you don't have to. So that wraps up this weekly wrap up. I hope everybody's doing good. Make sure and check back for the announcement about the winners of the giveaways, as well as the announcement about the upcoming England tour. I hope everybody has a great week of reading, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.